Finally, engine prep time, so that way I could toss the engine in today. Today's Sunday, and I'm dropping the car off on Tuesday for all the fabrication work. One of the upgrades I decided to do is improved racing oil baffle kit that bolts into the stock Camaro oil pan. I'll take this off and show you what that looks like in the inside, but naturally the LSs have some oil failure points, or at least weaknesses. And one of them being the fact that there is not a real great sump inside of this oil pan. So this baffle kit has these trap doors that allow you to trap oil in every single direction. So whenever I take this out to road racing events and I'm pulling G's across corners, I'm making sure that I'm going to maintain high oil pressure and I'm not going to be cavitating my oil, which is naturally what happens to these engines and causes some failure points. At the same time too, I'm likely also going to paint this. If I don't do it today, I'll do it in a different video when I take the engine back out after fabrication. But the point is, gotta get the motor in today and get everything mounted so that way we could do fabrication on Tuesday. Oil pan's off, direct replacement, remove those bolts on the factory baffle, replace the baffle, put the bolts back on, probably some Loctite, and torque them. Perfect fit. And before I bolt this down, I'm going to add the oil drain 10A bung onto the oil pan, likely somewhere around here on the driver's side, so that way it drains straight into the oil pan baffle. Okay, so this was the worst welding I've ever done, but you know, I'm learning as I go along, which is why I'm gonna have Devin over at GSK Fab do the rest of the fabrication. This was a non-structural component and I kind of needed to get it done right away, and I knew I could get it done. It's not gonna be the prettiest, but it's going to hold up. It's not a structural component, and this is my first time learning, you know, welding between two different types of material, whereas the cast is like a thicker material that's going to require more amperage and starting hotter faster, and just making sure, you know, I have good penetration all the way down into the joint and going all the way around. So I feel like it's decent enough. I don't think it's going to leak, and that's really what matters. Okay, oil pan's on there for good. And now I just need to drill out and tap a hole right here that normally would be there for, let's say the LS1 aluminum block motors that come in the F bodies, because they have an alternator location that goes here, whereas the truck accessories are on its own bracket. So in order for me to do the F body fitment here, ICT sells a bracket that puts it right where the F-body alternator typically goes, and then I'll just be drilling out and tapping, and then we should be able to have the alternator on there. Not sure what happened to my gimbal. It kind of just fell out of place and didn't notice it until it was too late, but the engine's almost in. I'm just trying to align everything so I could get the mounts in there. The thing that's hitting right now is I'm just trying to get the shifter into the shifter tunnel area. I probably should have taken that off just to have a little bit more clearance and wiggle room, but it's almost there. Okay, for anyone doing the swap, don't make the mistake I did and connect the chains to the back of the head, because I can't get the motor more back in order to get the shifter in the right location and line up the mounts, which still need to go back about 1.5 inches, maybe, yeah, about 1.5 inches. You do this in the back, there's no way you're gonna get the bolt out. We're way too close to the firewall, so I'm gonna have to use the engine hoist on top of the valley cover. Originally, I wanted to do that, but I figured out that if I did that, I'm not gonna have, you know, the leverage bar to kind of give me the angle that I need. So, gotta take it out. Okay, after some fighting, I finally got the motor mounts in. Now they're just barely threaded on. The tricky part now is going to be getting the trans mount, because that has to be kind of aligned. It doesn't bolt into any factory location, and so you got to do it from the bottom and drop the trans. Well, not completely drop it, but get it out of the way so you can drill through the sheet metal and then put in the bolts. I'm tired. One thing the instructions don't tell you on the Ronin kit is that you have to cut out the shifter tunnel just slightly enough to be able to compensate for the T56 shifter location. So normally it just goes across here. I cut it up until the medium or the midpoint of these two studs. I'm personally not a fan of the transmission mount that comes with this kit. Mazda has some factory mounting points here and there. I've seen people make a transmission mount go that way. I don't know why Ronin decided not to. Maybe for structural rigidity. I mean, it seems strong enough, so I'm not sure why they wouldn't do that. The way this goes, you kind of just like let it land where it likes to fit, and then you mark your holes, you lower the transmission, then drill them out, which means that you have to go and rip out all of your interior to remove your carpet, which is a lot of work. So that way you could get these plates on the backside, which is where you're gonna thread this to that. I don't know, it just seems like not great, because I mean, I can move this transmission down 1/2 inch, or I can move it up, which gives me different angles regarding the engine and the drivetrain as a whole. So not a lot of guidance here. The instructions aren't super specific. The only thing I really can go off of is this mount here has a slight bend in it from factory. They probably did with a press brake. So it kind of goes with the contour of the body, which makes sense. But I mean, that's really all I have to go off of. The instructions tell you to lower the transmission out of the way so that way you can drill through and make your holes. I found it easier just to jack the transmission all the way up until, you know, the shifter's touching the transmission tunnel. That gives you more than enough room to make your holes here. Okay, it's finally in, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this does not go in like factory. I've probably spent about 2 hours doing this by myself. Would have been easier with someone else on the inside, kind of guiding the bolts. But it's doable. It's just be prepared. It's gonna take you time. This is what it looks like on the inside. There's these screws right here that go. I would assume that that's to hold this plate in place, so when you remove the bolts on the transmission mount, it's not gonna fall off. Instead, I don't feel like drilling any more holes, so I'm going to weld this in a couple of spots directly to the chassis. Same thing on that side. One thing that I just simply got lucky with, but I could definitely see someone running into an issue, is fitment, because I had to hammer this down and I have zero clearance right there. If that transmission mount would have been just 1 millimeter lower than where I made these holes, I would have had fitment issues like no other. Not a great design. It works. It's probably stronger than the other factory mounts that are there. So, you know, once you get it on there, I'm not judging its strength. But when it comes to kind of like DIY and putting this together, Some of the QA fitment issues. You know, I had to drill some of the holes bigger and things of that sort. So not a 10 out of 10, but it's done. And just like that, the motor is under its own weight. Nothing holding it up besides the mounts that it's designed to, the jack's not holding anything right there, but took a while. But I think we're on track to drop this off on Tuesday to start working on the fabrication pieces for the turbo kit.